Hi, today we'll be discussing the Keynesian Equilibrium. This will be discussed further in class, and the handout there will be more things that will be filled in. But right now, I'm just going to cover the basics of what this truly is and the Keynesian cross and how you are able to see that. So first you have that the Keynesian equilibrium is the difference between the planned and the actual industries and is a measure of the unexpanded slackness in demand. So you will see this further whenever we introduce the actual formula, and you will see the difference between whenever planned is greater than your actual or your actual is greater than your planned. You will see the difference between all of those. Here's an example so far when your demand is weaker than you had anticipated. So not as many people are the demand that you had planned is actually weaker than what has actually happened. So you have that firms end up with higher inventories than you had planned. So this is your actual is greater than your planned, which is shown right here in that formula right there. And then you have that firms will decrease production. So this is very important that you know what the firms are doing. So this says that the firms are decreasing production in order to return inventories to the planned levels. So your firms are having to decrease that production to get back to the planned levels. Here's another, this is the opposite of it. So up here it said whenever demand was weaker. Now we're looking at when demand is stronger. So whenever your demand is stronger than what you anticipated. And this obviously has the opposite effect. So your firms draw down their inventories. Here is that formula again that will become in handy later. Your actual inventories is less than what you had planned because the demand is stronger than what you had planned that it was going to be. So than what it actually was. So your actual inventories will be less than the planned. Firms will increase production in order to increase the inventories to the planned level. So you're increasing production now, and previously you were decreasing the production. So you need to remember when demand is weaker, you're decreasing the production because your actual is greater than what you had planned. But here, you are increasing the production because your demand was too strong because your actual was less than what you had planned. Okay, here is the formula that I was just talking about. This is going to come in super in handy. This is basically just showing that your planned inventories is equal to your actual. So your PAE is your planned, which we had learned more about earlier in this unit, and Y is your actual. So those are it's super convenient to have this in your back pocket, especially whenever you are looking to solve these previous problems. Knowing how this formula is affected is very beneficial, which I will show you soon. And this equilibrium, whenever you are looking at this graphically, you are looking for that 45-degree line, and that shows where your PAE is equal to your Y. So I will show you that graphic line soon. Here are those relationships I was talking about. These relationships will be so beneficial for you to know on the test and have in your back pocket for you to be able to better identify the Keynesian equilibrium. So here we have, again, this is whenever your actual is greater than your planned. So we know when our actual is greater than our planned that we need to decrease production. Now, our actual is less than our planned. So we need to increase our production or our actual. This Y is equal to actual. Now, obviously, whenever they are at equilibrium, there's no change because we don't need to change anything. Here's what I was talking about with it graphically. Here's our 45-degree angle line, which is our Keynesian equilibrium, which is something that you will need to be able to graph for the test. And here is your aggregated demand. And here is that equilibrium that you were just talking about. So here, this is how you identify that. And this equilibrium is known as the Keynesian cross. That is something that you will need to know how to identify which you will be able to identify by looking at it graphically. So whenever you graph this out and you see that 45-degree line and you are able to cross it with which is what actually had happened from the problem, you'll be able to get that Keynesian cross, which is your equilibrium. We will be discussing more practice problems in class, but as of right now, this is everything that you will need to know about Keynesian equilibriums. Thank you.